PTR series of carbines and pistols. I get a lot of questions about them when they're chambered in 9mm. This is a relatively new gun to the market. This gun came into Copper custom used, so I took that opportunity to make a video about it. They are not inexpensive. They're available over on the Atlantic Firearms website. This one will become available over on the Copper custom website when we're done with the video, the actual video gun. However, if you want to pick up just a gun at any other time, Atlantic is selling them for right around $1,680. So that's a premium price for a 9mm, what would equate to MP5 or HK94 clone. Now this particular model is the 9KT, which is the MP5K. Has a short, just a little over 5-inch barrel. This one has a tri-lug adapter, a knurled protector, and a 5x28 thread on the end. Has its own proprietary single point M-lock hand stop, and you'll notice it has a pick rail welded to the top of the receiver back here. The rear sights, just like any other MP5K that I've seen in my life, it has a series of V-notches, no apertures. You have no apertures, just V-notches in the rear, and different elevation settings. On here, I can't see any markings as to which one is for what range, so we'll just have to kind of guess. Now this one already has the SB Tactical side folding brace on it. You can get them new with just a butt cap, and you can put whatever brace you would like on it. The receiver is, of course, stamped sheet metal, and we'll get into the details of the welding and the stuff like that later in the video. And then it has an old school polymer MP5 style lower that is clipped, not pinned, and then a selector that goes to safe, semi, and full. Unfortunately, when you go to full, you're not going to get fully automatic. It's still just semi-automatic. Let's go ahead and load the gun up, fire off the first 30 rounds. Actually, I think there's 25 in here of the day, and it loads just like any other 9mm gun of its type. You kind of push it in firmly. It has a big flapper release right from the factory on it, which is a nice addition. Plus you have your push button here, which unless you have Yeti hands like me, you're never going to reach that. So the flapper is nice. You can kind of strip the magazine out, lock the bolt to the rear, make sure that magazine's seated, HK slap it, and let's see how these first 25 rounds go. Okay, just like a regular MP5, does not lock open on the last shot fired. So that's a good sign. Gun seems to run just fine. The ammunition we just fired was Federal 130 grain PCC carbine ammo. And we'd like to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying that ammunition, because they keep us well stocked in ammunition here on the channel. All right, so I've also brought out my Turkish-made MKE MP5K clone, and it's an SBR, so we'll show you what the SBR version of this would look like. And we'll do a slight comparison, because there's been some rumors that I've caught wind of on the internet that perhaps Zenith is making the receivers for PTR. Let's talk about that as well. The magazine that comes with the PTR has no markings on it aside from the 9mm by 19 at the very base. There's no manufacturer indication on it, but looking at the magazine, it's a high quality 30-round steel mag, so it looks good. Now on the Atlantic website, they make mention of possibly shipping with a metal mag like this or a polymer mag. I can't say I've ever seen an MP5 polymer mag, but of course there's a lot of things in this world I've never seen before. But yeah, this one, it doesn't have a manufacturer's marking, so MKE will put MKE on it, HK will put HK on it, POF puts POF on it. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know where these magazines are made. Very well could be made domestically, and if that's the case, it seems that they've done a nice job with the magazines. So let's go ahead and fire the gun with its magazine, and then I have an MKE magazine here, and let's see if it works with another manufacturer's mag. Okay, that was the magazine from PTR. This is the MKE magazine, locks in. And it worked just fine with the MKE magazine. So it's safe to say that the PTR is probably going to run just about any high quality manufactured magazine intended for the MP5, but keep in mind there's some really bad 9mm mags out there that were produced by various companies for these rifles and pistols. So if you're going to buy magazines, buy from a quality manufacturer. The PTR mags seem to be good. If they're in stock on the website, you can get some MKEs if you find them available. HK mags are good. And I've even had good luck with the curved POF magazines. I've had some bad luck with the old straight stick mags made from a number of different companies, but the curved mags I've usually had pretty good luck with running them in my HK94 type clones. So let's try to put to bed the notion that MKE is possibly making the receivers for PTR. I personally don't think that's the case. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I had a couple of people mention that in comments that I had seen. Now, I don't know how widespread that rumor is, but I thought it was an interesting rumor and one that deserved addressing. So on top, I have the PTR 9KT, and on the bottom, I have my Turkish-made MKEK gun with a B&T side folding stock and a vertical grip. This one is actually an SBR. So if you take a look at the guns, you're going to notice a couple of major differences that are going to indicate whether or not MKE might be making the guns. The biggest thing that I see is that the MKE guns have a 2-pin lower. What does that mean? Well, it means that I have a push pin here right by the magazine well that holds the front end of the trigger group in place. If you take a look at the PTR, this is what we call a clipped lower, and so it has a shelf that it engages with, and it only has one pin here in the rear that holds the brace in place. So the fact that it doesn't have that pinhole tells me that this most likely is not an MKE receiver. Now there's other indications. The weld's completely different. If you take a look at the weld on the receiver right here on the MKE gun, if I can hold it still for a second, and then take a look at the weld on the PTR, completely different welds. The resistance welds around the front of the receiver look similar, but if you look at the pin that's in there, the MKE pin looks nothing like the pin being used by PTR. Little details like the rear sight tower, you'll notice there's no relief cut on the side of the sight tower here on the PTR. If you take a look at the MKE gun, there's a slight relief cut in the rear tower. So the differences to me seem fairly pronounced. I don't think MKE is making the guns for PTR. They've probably tooled up to make their own stamped receivers domestically. So there's just too many indicators saying that it's not the same company making the receivers. The welds look different. There's pinholes in the MKE gun that aren't present in the PTR. The indentations from the stamping obviously coming out of different molds. So let's just go ahead and put that rumor to bed. I don't think it's true. This is my MKE SBR, and this is in a traditional K-gun configuration. It'll have these plates welded on back here, and it'll have a number of different stock options that are available. This one happens to be a B&T stock, which I like quite a bit. This is a regular vertical foreend grip from hkparts.net. That's where I picked up the vertical foreend grip. And the conversion really is as simple as changing out the stocks, popping a couple of pins and putting them on once you get your Form 1 back. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire this one for you guys. I love this particular SBR. Jason says this is his favorite SBR in my collection. The MKE gun does not have a full auto lower on it, and it will not go to a third position. I just have fire and safe. So these little guns are very, very controllable. That was with an MKE mag. This is another MKE mag. We're still shooting the Federal Syntech 130 grain PCC ammunition. The recoil is very, very controllable on these little guys. Really fun little guns, and when they're made into SBRs, a very handy little package. Boy, I wish I could still buy full autos. Now, the nice thing about the PTR or the MKE guns, which are imported by Zenith, is that they're host ready. If you're lucky enough to have an auto sear, it'll drop right into either one of these firearms, no problem. So they would make good host guns for those of you out there that do have registered sears for HK type firearms. Let's take a look inside the PTR and see what its guts look like. Magazine's been removed, weapon is on safe. I've gone ahead and inspected the chamber, nothing's inside. Hello, there's my big finger that I busted with a Barrett Light 50. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and clear it. Done that, put the bolt back in the forward position. You don't want it rearward because you have big spring in here that you don't want to contend with that pressure when taking the brace off, because it'll cause everything to go shooting out the rear of the gun. On the K guns, you have a 2-pin design, and you have 1 pin up here and 1 pin down here. Now, every single clone I've ever owned or used has very tight pins. The old original HK 90 series guns, 91, 93, 94, the pins came out fairly easily. That's not the case with many of the clones on the market, and this is no exception. Just pushing on it with my thumb, no dice. Pop it out with a bit of the help of a tool. Oh well, so those little holes don't really hold the pins on the SB braces. Just learned that. There we go. Take some plastic table with me there. Pop that one off. All right, so this is a Manticore adapter and an SB Tactical brace. You can see Manticore right there and then SB Tactical. The Manticore adapter has the rubber piece right here, so the bolt will actually run into that versus steel, so that's high quality. To take the pistol grip off, once you get the 2 pins out, just whack it, pull it down, keeping in mind you have no front pin, and now you have access to the trigger system. The bolt, just pull the charging handle to the rear, and everything should come flying out. Keep in mind, roller delayed guns like this are filthy. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe the bolt off here so we can see any markings that are on it. Looks to be well machined. It's in the white, which is normal. All right, rollers look to be in good shape. I mean, I'll be honest with you, this carrier and spring and everything else look to be military contract. PTR in all likelihood is using actual military contract parts here. I don't see any markings on the carrier, but let's go ahead and take that bolt out. Just all you have to do is rotate it to its disassembly point, take it off, pull your firing pin, locking piece out, and then your firing pin recoil or firing pin spring, and that's fully disassembled on the bolt and carrier side. If you want to take your trigger group out for cleaning, just rotate this lever up until it pops out, and then pull your trigger trigger housing out of the polymer, and there goes the PTR, and you have you'll notice our picnic table's at a slight angle. We're going to have to fix that. And now you have your trigger group out for cleaning. They've made the cut here, so it is not, the pack itself is not sear ready. You would have to get a sear capable pack because they've made the cut to the trigger group here. And it looks like this probably was an original military contract trigger pack. So of the parts that PTR is actually manufacturing, I'm not sure, but a lot of these components appear to be military contract components. The bolt itself has a serial number on it and then it's stamped PTR. So they're possibly manufacturing these in-house. The locking piece doesn't appear to be military contract. It has 110 marked on it and is very shiny for a military contract part. So I'm going to go ahead and say that these parts are most likely being manufactured by PTR. Now, putting the little 9mm guns back together is relatively easy as compared to their 5.56 and especially their 308 counterparts. You got to remember that this goes inside the bolt like this. This is called a locking piece because when it goes forward, it will push these rollers out, and that locks into recesses in the receiver. So that's how a rolling delayed system works. All right, spring looks good on the extractor. Everything looks pretty good, fairly well made. This I'm going to go with some sort of a contract part. All right, let's put it back together. First, take your firing pin, put the spring on it, take your locking piece, put that into your bolt carrier, slightly turn it, take your bolt and just rotate it to its locked position. And you'll notice there's no big spring-loaded claw over here that you have to overcome the tension of. It's very simple and easy to put it back together. Take your trigger group, put it back into its housing, put your selector lever in, and just rotate it to the safe or any of the other fire positions that you'd like to. It'll stay together. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of Earl on it here, some oil. We'll just treat this gun right for its next owner, since I don't own it here. All right, get a little bit of oil on everything. Drop it back in, just like this. If you drop it nose down like this, that pretty much guarantees that your bolt's going to be in the proper position. You just drop that in like that until it stops. Oh, the reason I want to go forward is because I had the charging handle back and locked in the recess. Old man games. Okay. I couldn't figure out why the bolt wouldn't go home. It's because I had the charging handle locked back. All right, so she's all cleaned up. Got the bolt in. Take your trigger pack. With this, you see this little shelf here? This is what I'm talking about. This you wouldn't find on an MP5. This is so that you can put the front of this metal piece that's cut out to get rid of the auto sear pinhole. It'll rest on the shelf and hold the front, support the front of the trigger pack versus a pin. So you'll put that in first and then rotate it up. And now if you pull down on the front, you'll notice it can't come down because it's engaging with that shelf. Now comes the fun part. Take your brace, put it back in place, and beat the retaining pin in the hole game here really quick. Bottom pin went in with relative ease. The pinholes look like they're, there we go. Thought the pinholes were lining up. Okay, there we go. Just make sure you visually line those pinholes up, but that last little bit to get them all the way through does require a little bit of TLC. But you can see if you're using rubber or polymer, you're not going to mar up your finish at all on the gun. So, all right, quick function check. And everything seems to be in order. All right, she's ready to shoot some more. So I know one of the things that people are going to talk about is the price. At $1,680, this thing is far from inexpensive or even affordable. And the question then becomes, well, if this thing's been around since the 1960s, like 1966, why does it cost so much? Because the cost of AR-15s has come down significantly. Well, originally stampings were used to save money, but as progression took place, CNC machines, robotic manufacturing took over, it's actually cheaper to mill a receiver than it is to stamp a receiver in today's economy. So the other problem is where did PTR get the molds to stamp this? We ran across a firearms blog article, and TFB said that all of the parts, sans a few polymer components and the molding for it, are manufactured right here in the United States. So that's what looked like contract parts to me, like the bolt carrier I couldn't find any markings on, and even the springs and the guide rod from the spring, according to the TFB article, is actually manufactured right in South Carolina with the PTR at their factory, at their manufacturing facilities. So I find that to be really, really interesting. So did PTR go out and get a TDP from another country? Did they buy their stamping equipment from another country? I don't know. But the cost is just reflective of what the market will bear, and it's a brand new product that they had to bring to market, even if you have the technical data package. And if you have to go out and get stampings done, that's expensive to do, even if you have that data. Getting the stamp molds and things like that's very expensive, and it still probably took them a year or more of R&D just to build the gun, because that information just isn't out there. And a lot of people think, well, if I got one example, I can just take some measurements and that's how you clone something. Doesn't work that way. Many manufacturers probably wish it did work that way, but that doesn't give you the tolerance stacking data and stuff like that that you really need to produce a gun that's this complex. These roller delayed guns, if one thing is just slightly out of spec, they don't work at all. They become garbage. So that's something I wanted to address. Now, Do I think it's justified? I don't know, guys. That's only something that you can decide for yourself. If you really want to spend $1,680 on an HK clone manufactured in the United States. All I can say is, from our shooting this afternoon, is that this gun looks to be every bit the quality of the MKE gun, and it's roughly the same price. And if we take a look at some of the casings coming out of the gun, they have flutes on them, which would be correct. I have 3 different magazines. I have its native magazine that it ships with, I have an MKE magazine, and I have a POF magazine to shoot out of the gun. So this one's the MKE magazine. This one is the factory magazine, PTR. All right. This last one, by deductive reasoning, will be the POF. Wow, look at that. So there we go. All 3 magazines seem to work just fine out of the PTR. The finish on the gun looks like a black Cerakote, or maybe they found some way to replicate the actual HK painted on finish. But either way, it seems to be fairly durable and holding up nicely. I see no wear on the gun whatsoever from firing it. It looks really, really sharp. So the next question is, how does the 80s hip fire? We're going to find out. Does it take Glock mags? No, silly, it takes MP5 magazines. How does it bump fire? I don't know. I'm about to find out. Pretty darn well. Woohoo! That's pretty cool. Yeah, I hit the target every time. I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, what about the PSA gun? I haven't seen the PSA gun yet. All we found was an old blog article from January of 2019 where PSA made an update announcement saying that they ran into some production problems, the parts that were being manufactured didn't meet spec, and that they could possibly release it 3rd or 4th quarter of 2019. So maybe it's on its way out. So I don't know, but they did say that they had a target price of $1,100, but they wanted to keep it below $1,300, which would make it $500 or more less expensive than the PTR or the MKE. Now keep in mind the MKE guns are kind of spotty on their import. The guys over at Zenith aren't always able to get guns out of Turkey, so they'll come in and then they'll disappear for months and months. And then if you'll come in, they'll be gone again. So hopefully the US market will be able to step up and supply that demand for these high quality roller delayed firearms. They're really cool. Now taking a look at this PTR, I will say I'm pleasantly surprised. It looks like a quality build. I've owned the original HK94s, 93s, 91s, and I can say with confidence that this looks like, you know, a military contract built gun. Some of the welds are a little bit broad, a little bit dirtier than I've seen on some of the HK type products, but they're not bad welds at all. And taking a look at even the ribbing on the cocking tube, everything seems right. It just looks like a high quality clone of the MP5. Also, if you get on the PTR website, you'll see that they have carbine versions. They have a standard MP5 pistol version. They have the K version like this. So it looks like they're making the entire line of HK94/MP5 clones. All right, guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel in our continued effort to try to bring you unbiased information about products like this, please consider, I should say, becoming a Patreon supporter. There's a link down below. Become a Patreon and you want to play some games with us maybe? Yeah, we're Twitch gamers, even at my ripe old age. If you become a Patreon supporter, send us a note, tell us what your PSN network name is. We'll add you as a friend and you can join us on some live streams on Twitch. Last but not least, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Guys, thanks for 11 years of support and we'll talk to you soon.